Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing something really cool. We are diving into a heavily data-driven breakdown of the ultimate question in sim racing. How do you find real, objective speed? We're going way beyond the basic tutorials today and digging straight into the anatomy of a corner, decoding exactly what the absolute fastest drivers, the aliens of the sim racing world, are doing differently than the rest of us. So grab your notepad because we're going to absolutely transform the way you look at a racetrack.
So, if you've been grinding away on your favorite sim and you're staring at the timing screen wondering why you're still 3, 4, maybe even 5 seconds off the pace at the top splits, I totally hear you. It is literally the most frustrating plateau in the world. You feel like you're pushing the car to the absolute limit, maybe even overdriving it, right? And yet the guys at the front are just making it look effortless while they completely disappear down the road. But before you get too discouraged, check out this quote. "Where's your 27,000 lamps? There's nothing stopping you. Keep going." That's from a real-world and sim racing coach. And it's just the perfect reminder that speed isn't magic. It's a grind. The top drivers? They've put in thousands of hours to build that muscle memory. The speed you're desperately looking for isn't hidden in some secret car setup. It's found in the smallest percentages of technique, consistently applied. Progress really does happen just 1/10 of a second at a time. Okay, let's dive into this. We have an awesome masterclass ahead of us, and we're going to unpack it step by step. First, the truth in telemetry. Then, mastering the trail brake. Third, the brake bias secret. Fourth, rethinking the racing line. And finally, winning the mental game. All right, part 1, the truth in telemetry. Proving that speed is really just data. If you want to stop guessing why you're slow, you absolutely have to look at the data. Telemetry is your foundational lens for finding objective time. It basically turns your feelings into cold, hard facts. For example, when you compare common beginner habits versus pro techniques, the differences are just glaring. Take pedal overlap. A super common beginner mistake is accidentally dragging the brake and throttle at the same time. The poor car doesn't know if it's supposed to accelerate or decelerate, which heat soaks the rear tires and just destroys your grip. Pros, on the other hand, have incredibly clean, distinct transitions. Or look at throttle application. When beginners get to the gas, they tend to pump it, modulating up and down because they don't have a good reference point. Pros wait for the exact right moment and then deliver this beautifully smooth, decisive ramp-up straight to 100%. And finally, steering angle. Beginners use way too much steering to try and fix a sloppy entry, whereas pros use the pedals to rotate the car, keeping the steering wheel incredibly calm. Now, collecting this data is absolutely crucial, but you gotta read it right. Don't just obsess over your single fastest lap. What you actually want to do is compare your best lap against your average lap. That shows you where your baseline pace really lives. And when you're analyzing, always look for the lowest hanging fruit first. Honestly, this is usually your throttle trace. Overslowing the car, getting back on the gas too early, and then having to lift again, that costs massive amounts of time. Finally, use this data to practice with intention. Don't just mindlessly grind out 100 laps. Target specific corners, identify the patterns, like, say, where you consistently run wide, and actively work on fixing that exact input. Moving right along to section 2, mastering the trail brake and controlling that corner entry. So, we're moving from analyzing squiggly lines on a screen to actually applying physical inputs with your feet, which is where the magic really happens. Trail braking is basically the act of maintaining and slowly releasing brake pressure as you turn into a corner. But why do we do this? Well, it's all about the physics. When you brake, the nose of the car dips, right? This shifts the vehicle's weight right over the front tires, giving them the extra grip they desperately need to rotate the car. If you jump off the brake pedal too quickly, that weight violently shifts backward. Your front tires lose all that precious grip, and boom, you understeer right past the apex and completely ruin the corner. To master this, you need to isolate your muscle memory. A great way to do this is the steering freeze drill. Go find a long, medium-speed corner on your favorite track. Step 1, brake hard in a straight line. Step 2, turn in and deliberately freeze your steering wheel at a set angle. Just hold it there. Step 3, drag the brakes deep into the corner without turning the wheel any further. If your car pushes wide, it means you dropped the brake pressure too fast. This drill forces you to steer the car with your brake pedal, keeping you from masking bad footwork by just cranking the steering wheel harder. Next up is the brake, hold, go drill. This one is an absolute game changer if you want to fix that throttle pumping habit we talked about earlier. For this drill, you actually want to brake a little bit earlier and softer than you normally would. Hold that light brake pressure perfectly steady all the way down to the apex. And then, the exact moment you reach the apex, apply 100% throttle smoothly with absolutely zero hesitation or modulation.
Doing this trains your brain to connect the apex with a confident throttle application, so you actually use all of the track on the exit. Now, what's really interesting here is this concept of active versus passive release. You shouldn't just lazily let your foot off the brake pedal. You actually need to actively fight the spring tension of the pedal on the way up. You should literally feel your foot muscles engaging to hold that final 5 to 10% of brake pressure. Every single percent of pressure you maintain on release unlocks a little more rotation from the car. It is a very precise, active fight, not a passive rest. Okay, part 3, the brake bias secret. This is basically your in-car cheat code. Shifting focus from our physical inputs, let's look at the car setup itself. Brake bias is perhaps the single most powerful, on-the-fly adjustment you have in the cockpit, and it's crazy how many drivers just completely ignore it. I absolutely love this analogy from sim racing creator Danny Lee. He says, understanding brake bias is as simple as putting the right amount of milk in your tea. It's brilliant. Think of it this way. More front brake bias is like adding a ton of milk. It makes for a very safe, stable, predictable cup of tea. Maybe kind of boring, but it won't burn you. Less front bias, moving that pressure to the rear tires, is like a strong, dark cup of tea. It's edgy, it's aggressive, and it forces you to live right on the absolute limit. So, how do we actually use this to our advantage on the track? Let's run through some quick rules of thumb. If you increase the bias, meaning you send more stopping force to the front, you add safety and induce a little bit of understeer. This is a total lifesaver for taming a nervous car going into tricky, bumpy braking zones, like Sunset Bend at Sebring. But if you decrease the bias, sending force to the rear, you add agility and oversteer, which really helps a stubborn car rotate into a tight hairpin. The golden rule here? Only ever adjust 1 to 2% at a time. Anything more than that, and you're just asking for a spin. Oh, and here's a fantastic pro tip. Increase your brake bias slightly on lap 1. It acts as a great safety net against locking up your brakes on cold, slippery tires, especially when you're caught in heavy traffic. All right, let's move on to section 4, rethinking the racing line. Stop driving like a math textbook. Let's look at track geometry and bust a massive myth about lap times. A lot of beginners think what feels incredibly fast in the middle of a corner is the best way around it, but often that's actually destroying your overall time. Look at this comparison. The geometric apex is this beautiful, mathematical, symmetrical arc. It maximizes your minimum corner speed because your steering radius stays constant the whole way through. But here is the problem. Racing isn't about being fast in the corner. It's about being fast out of it. Enter the late apex. By turning in a bit later and clipping the inside curb past its midpoint, you actually sacrifice a little bit of that mid-corner speed. But the payoff? It's huge. It dramatically straightens out your exit line. And why does that matter? Because literally 1 mile per hour gained on the exit of a corner is carried all the way down the following straight. The late apex trades a tiny, momentary drop in corner speed for a massive top speed advantage down the entire straightaway. So how do you actually find this magical late apex on a track you've never driven before? You do it by walking the corner backwards in your mind. Always start at the exit. Ask yourself, where do I want the car to end up at full throttle? Usually that's flush against the outside curb. From there, trace a line backwards to find where the apex has to be to allow you to hit that exit naturally without having to pinch the steering wheel. It's a real aha moment when you start thinking about it this way. Finally, walk back from that apex to figure out where your turn-in and braking points need to be. Basically, always solve the puzzle of a corner starting from the exit. And that brings us to our final section, part 5, winning the mental game, putting it all together under pressure. Look, we can have the best data, flawless footwork, the perfect setup, and the optimal racing line, but literally none of it matters if you fall apart the second the lights go green. The absolute crucial point here is that high-pressure moments require you to completely detach from the outcome. The drivers who are consistently winning races, they aren't white-knuckling the steering wheel in sheer panic. They use pre-race routines to warm up intentionally and calmly. Sitting on the grid, they use visualization techniques, mentally rehearsing their braking zones. Once the race starts, they enter a flow state. They use controlled breathing, and this is a big one, they stop staring at their lap time deltas because that only causes distraction. And when they inevitably make a mistake, because everyone does, they detach and reset instantly. An unforced error is just a learning moment to them, not a reason to ruin the rest of the race. So we've completely broken down the anatomy of what makes an alien so incredibly fast. You've got the telemetry insights, you understand the art of the active trail brake, you've got the brake bias cheat code, and you know exactly why the late apex dominates the stopwatch. But the ultimate test is on you. You have the data, you know the line, but do you have the focus to put in those 27,000 laps and execute?
Hit the virtual track, practice with intention, and I guarantee you're going to start slicing seconds off those lap times. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you on the podium.